Hi, I'm Steve McCord, Cattaraugus County Director of Veteran Services, and this is Our Veterans, Their Stories, preserving our heroes' stories, one story at a time.
Went into the reserves, I guess you could call it, because I took the 90 days ahead of time before I went in. I was one of the first and only guys that got deferred because I went up to see the Navy recruiter at the fair, and that was before when you get your draft notice. I already had my draft notice when I went up there, and they told me that since I came up that I could join the Navy, and that's one of the reasons why I joined the Navy, because I didn't feel like I wanted to be an Army man. So I joined the Navy, then I took their 90 days so I could go to my buddy Denny Adams' wedding, and then after that I went to Chicago for my boot camp. I was supposed to have the 13 weeks there, boot camp. They cut it down to 10. Sent me home 3 weeks before Christmas, so that's messed that up. Then I went back and I got to have guard duty outside at Great Lakes in the middle of the winter at 35 below zero, we might as well say, with that wind coming off that lake. After that, after I graduated, I went to A school. Now everybody always gets their nice pay to go to A school, travel pay. They give me a bus ticket to go across the street. Because I went to A school there, so I never really got a chance to get any money to travel on. So I went to electronics technician school. So that's what I did Then after that, I ended up going to Hawaii to pick up my ship, the USS Forester DER 334. And we headed for Vietnam. On the way, we stopped in Guam, and then after that, we just ran up and down the coast of Vietnam. And every once in a while, we'd pick the gook up, which they called them. And with the same guy, we kicked him up about 3 times because he deserted from the army of the Vietnamese, and we had to take him back to port. But just run up and down the coast and make sure there was no Vietnamese getting out, because they would go out on sampans and try to get away from the army because they didn't want to fight.
What year was this deal?
I went in 65 and got out in 70. Destroyer escort radar picket. It was built in 1940s, and then it was one of those 90-day wonders they built for World War II, and I was still going when I was in. And I was a communications guy, so I spent all my time repairing the radios and stuff like that. Not bad. There was only 100 people on it, so it was a nice small ship. Just like being in a little valley,
Did you have rooms or?
No, just had a area and then with a bunk. We had one guy that got smart one day, and he thought he'd give me a little shot, so he put a transistor, charged it up and put it on my bunk, so when you hit the metal, you'd get a shock. Well, I missed it all and got into the bunk and got back out, and he came over to find out what was going on, and he got the shock. Yeah. But otherwise, this wasn't bad. I had a mess cook for a while. Learned how to do an egg in each hand. When you're cooking for 100 people, you know, you don't have time to waste. Doing's real nice, neat. But otherwise, Vietnam wasn't bad. We didn't ever have any actual shooting at us. I got on the beach once at in Da Nang. They took us in on the boat. We got to sit there for half an hour drinking the beer while they took the other guys back and then picked up their load and brought them back out over there. So then you had to go back. So you got 3-4 beers, which wasn't bad at that time of the year. After that, as we were in, they said Kaohsiung, Qilin, down the Taiwan coast, that wasn't bad. There was no trouble there, they were just making sure. Then we ended up going to Guam. I'm not in order. Let's see. We actually went to, after Taiwan, we ended up going to over to, Taiwan. Yeah, we had shore duty in the country. What is it? Where the British government had their, we had,
Hong Kong.
yeah, we were there shore duty for a week. That was tough. Had port and starboard duty. And they kept harassing me. He says, port and starboard, because there's only 2 communication technicians on board ship. And you guys want me to stay and watch. And the other guy was a second-class petty officer, so he didn't have to stay and watch. So I says, that's the case. I said, when I'm done at 7 o'clock in the morning, I want to be on liberty. So they thought about it for a little bit, and then they said, okay. I had a room over in Hong Kong I'd stay at, so I was out of the way because could never got to sleep on board ship with all the noise they made. And then we used to go drinking afterwards. It had this bar here. You could buy a ticket. Would cost you a ticket for drinking all day. It cost you a whole $5.60. I mean, and anything you wanted. But that was good duty. Then we ended up going to Guam on the way home because we hit a baby whale and they had to pull in there.
Because damage to the ship?
Yeah, bent the drive shaft on the propeller. They had to straighten that out. Then after that, we ended up going to Japan because while we were out, we had an incident. Was supposed to be refueling the ship. The captain was in his bunk, in his office, and he pulled up alongside the refueling ship at 18 knots, hit that pneumatic rubbers that they had to make sure you didn't hit one of those, and it blew a hole in our mess deck. So we had to go to captain's mast for the captain. Because it don't matter whether he was on or not, he was still responsible. So we entered there, spent 2 weeks in port there getting repaired. Yeah, we were just picket ship, make sure people were adhering to what they wanted. The captain never told us what they really wanted, so. And then we had our radioman. He was the cryptographer on board ship. He got transferred on them, so they had nobody to fix their cryptograph when it broke down. So the captain told me and my other ET, says, "Well, you guys are qualified now." I said so. So we had to go in and try to figure out what the problem was. So I had a secret clearance for that. Because that was and then my parents told me, he said, yeah, he said, when you went in, they said you had a secret clearance, because he says, the FBI was right here checking on you. Make sure. But anyways, after that, I got out of there, went back to Hawaii, spent a little time there. Then I went on to California to go to Treasure Island, California, and went to school there for the TACAN, Tactical Air Navigational Aid System. So I spent 12 or 13 weeks there doing that. Then we went on to, and I got transferred to Rhode Island at Quonset Point. I don't know if anybody, there used to be an air base there, and it was also next to Camp Davidson, which was the Navy's Seabees. So I worked there, we had to drive out. We got as far as the flight line, and then we had to call the tower to get permission to go across, because our equipment was all set out in the middle of on the other side of the flight line. And that's where I ended up finishing up my tour of duty. I was checking out a piece of equipment. It was a radio transmitter, and I had the multimeter on the top of the tube, the metal part, and then I had it grounded, like to find out what the wattage was. Well, somewhere along the line it wasn't hitting right, so I went over to bump the plastic, and then in the multimeter there were little screws, metal screws. And when I got close enough to them, it grabbed my hand and give me amp and a half of current at 5,000 watts. It went up my hand and down to my leg. Thank God it stayed on one side, and I wouldn't have been here. But overall, I had a good time. Spent time in Quonset Point, or when I was in A school, I forgot. When I was in A school, we used to have these dances for, and they bring these nurses in. Well, when I went in, I was 21 years old. So I got to go to the dances and all that stuff, because all other 18-year-old kids had to stay out, because 21 was the drinking age in Illinois. So it got to be nice. You got to go dance with the nurses, and because they bring in a couple busloads of nurses all the time from Chicago. Most everybody in this village knew you anyway, so they were very friendly. They were just thankful you got back home, most of them. It wasn't like a lot of cities where. So when I lost my job at 1980-some at York Merritt, I went down there and I went into my Vietnam Veterans Tuition Assistance Program to go to college. So I went 2 years at JCC, then I spent 2 years at Fredonia. So I got a 4-year degree for about $11,000. That was all it was buying my books and travel money. So I didn't think that was bad at all. I thought I had a job working for IBM when I got back. My father knew this guy. But then when I got home, that was the time IBM was laying off, so they were hiring nobody. That would have been a good job, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes you get good ones and sometimes you don't. Then I did 4 years as a service officer in Buffalo for the VFW. I enjoyed that. I helped a lot of veterans get their disability. I had one veteran that he had PTSD, and then from when he was over in Korea, they told him that he wasn't eligible because he was a cook. So I went back down to the guy and told him, I says, when do they give the Silver Star to the cook? Since it's the highest medal you can get, just about. So he got his PTSD.